Okay, Khyati ma'am, shall I begin?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Good afternoon to our esteemed resource person for the day, Dr. Khyati Vora ma'am, Principal Dr. Sridhara Shetty, Vice Principal and IQAC Coordinator Dr. Liji Santosh, Vice Principal Professor Sandesha Shetty, and dear participants. I am Assistant Professor Steffi Salve. On behalf of Bansanga's SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies, Powai, I extend a warm welcome to Dr. Khyati Vora ma'am for accepting our request to be our resource person for the day for this 7-day faculty development program on research methodology in social sciences, organized by IQAC in association with Research Center of our college. Ma'am, we are delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Today is day 3 of the faculty development program, and previously we have been oriented upon research problem, gap, objectives, review of literature, conceptual framework, and theoretical background. The topic for today's session is based on formulation of hypothesis. And to give us details about the session, as well as to introduce our resource person, I invite Vice Principal Professor Sandesha Shetty.
Dr. Khyati Vora, currently working as an assistant professor at KPB Induja College of Commerce since 2007. She is a PG recognized faculty and also a recognized guide for MBA programs in YCMOU. Some of the key positions held by Dr. Khyati Vora are: she is a member of Ad hoc Board of Studies for Financial Market, University of Mumbai since 2015. She is an Executive Council member of Maharashtra State Commerce Association. She was appointed by the University of Mumbai as an officer on special duty for monitoring OSM. She was a member of Syllabus Setting Committee at University of Mumbai. She has presented and published more than 64 research papers at national and international conferences and seminars, out of which 7 best paper was awarded as the best paper in national and international conferences and seminars. With this brief introduction, I welcome ma'am to this FDP organized by Bansanga's SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies, Powai. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Principal Dr. Sridhar sir, for giving this opportunity to share my knowledge of research with the participants. Thanks, Liji ma'am, for coordinating with me. Thanks, Sandesha sir, and all other staff of this college. And so I welcome all participants here. So today, before I start, we can have some code of conduct for this 2 hours. If you all have any important questions to put, you can put it in the chat box, or you may wait for me to complete one particular topic and then we can have question answer round. I will try to address most of them, as many as I can, and I will try my best to justify those answers. Moreover, see, let us understand that we all are selling in the same boat. Neither someone is more knowledgeable and the other is less. It's not that. In research, we all are in a different class. It is just about exploring and discovering the new ideas, understanding the path better, and making it more scientific. To start with, before I start the whole thing today, what I'm going to do today talk about is about hypothesis. But before I start hypothesis, I just want to know few things, that whether my participants are aware about those levels, and then I can proceed ahead. First question comes to my mind is whether we all know that how many types of research we do. Now, when I'm talking about not those types of research which we mentioned in the book, exploratory and empirical and descriptive, no. When it comes to research, now at this level where we all are at, we're talking about paper publications, research articles. In that case, we talk about, as Sridhar sir have just mentioned, conceptual papers, another is review papers, and one is technical papers, where we do data analysis. Most of us have this myth that only the papers which have a data and there are fancy tests are the quality papers. It is not so. Secondly, review of literature paper are not so worth. They are very important. They take a very good stand in the international renowned journals. And conceptual papers. So conceptual paper doesn't have reviews, which has to be created, and that becomes review for the other papers. Hence, nowadays there are a lot of research going on how to write a smart conceptual papers. So, but what we write, you know what, initially when we don't know research and how the new researcher starts writing without having a much knowledge about research data, primary data, secondary data, review of literature, they are like essays. Many a times, even when I started my research career, I started writing something of my thoughts, what I felt. But in research in the later stage, we all realize that it's not about my opinion or your opinion. It is a facts that speak. Okay, so we have to work on the facts. What facts are saying? What are the evidence talking about? What are the data telling us about the relationship? So entire research revolve around the facts and not what is my opinion or your opinion. Even when we do review of literature, it is not the opinion of the author. It is the data that he has derived and he has analyzed and interpreted. And on that basis, he or she has derived some findings, and that findings are the review of literature. So this was a basic myth which I wanted to clear with all my participants, that always keep this thing as a priority, that yes, I'm not going to write something, I'm not doing any research, it is a data which will give me the results. Okay, so okay, I'll share the screen first. So we are going to talk about understanding variables and framing hypothesis through variables. So what are our learning objectives? What are the takeaways today? After discussing something for 2 hours, I expect participants should at least be aware about concepts of variables, types of variables, concept of hypothesis, and types of hypothesis. Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay. So in the first 2 sessions, I'm sure participants must have learned about how to do review of literature. And through that review, initial time, I remember many of them who are just starting, we felt review of literature is just a chapter in the project or a chapter in the thesis, which helps you to increase your number of pages. The later stage, when you start doing research and when you do attend various workshops, you realize that review of literature are the parent. It's a source through which you derive your entire research, your research paper, your thesis, your findings, everything together. Through review of literature, what we get is, we get to know what in review of literature हम पढ़ते क्या है, हमारा main motive क्या होता है review of literature में, हम ढूंढते क्या है. So I want 1 or 2 participants quickly can just answer this. अच्छा लीजिए मैम, do they have a right to permission to unmute themselves?
We have asked them only to use the chat box, ma'am.
Okay, they can answer in the chat box. Yeah. So what do we? I want okay participants. जितना आप आंसर करोगे, इंटरैक्ट करोगे, उतना आइडेंटिफाई गैप्स. किस चीज का गैप्स? Gaps in what? Existing limitation of the study, variables, find unsolved problems. ROLs means determining variable future scope, what haven't been explored. Management discussion. Okay. Through review of literature, मेरा अभी भी क्वेश्चन ये था कि हम रिव्यू ऑफ लिटरेचर करते हैं तो हम उसमें देखते क्या है, क्या स्टडी करना चाहते हैं. स्कोप 1 या 2 आंसर्स राइट गए हैं. स्कोप फॉर न्यू रिसर्चर, पॉइंट्स व्हिच लूज्ड बाय देम, whether they have just justify the topic or not. No, we are not supposed to test anybody's study there. Form and strength arguments. Okay, we can stop here. Okay. Do not use regional language. Oh God, sir. Kanan sir, I'll try my best to avoid that. Okay, I'll stick to English as far as possible. or else you can keep reminding me, Khyati ma'am, no other language. With the help of a review literature, can find out gaps between our studies so far, what have been done before. Okay, now please stop messaging. Okay, I got enough answers. I think some of them know the answer. In review of literature, we search variables. We search the existing studies. And then we try to find out, see, there are three things. First, to validate whatever study or relationship that person, that author have done in that particular area, is it true with me? Say, for example, I'm taking an example of higher education. If some relationship has been studied between teaching, learning, or STRs and performance in undergraduate students, and there is nothing much done in post-graduation, so I can validate the same in post-graduation. Next, what I can do is I can identify if there is more variables influencing them. Is there any mediating, moderating, or other variables influencing them? Or is there any unknown variables which can bring into the scene and we can check whether they have some relationship? So basically, under review of literature, you review the papers. In fact, in some of my sessions when I take review of literature, I tell them how to prepare Excel sheet and how to always, anything that you read, anything that you refer, even if you refer blogs, even that, in fact, we have been told that only books, journals, these are the authentic. No, nowadays it's not that. Everything can be referred, everything can be mentioned in your references. So whatever you refer, immediately you should, all those especially pursuing PhD, this is a tip for you all. Always keep an habit to create an Excel sheet, details of all what is you had referred and the findings. And from that findings, you will derive your variables. And from variables, you will create a relationship model. And that model is known as conceptual framework in real sense. What is understood by general people, most of the time, conceptual framework is the concept that are used in the research in that particular topic. But if in a practical sense, in the most of the renowned journals, what they do is they try to relate the variables, explain their relationship, and when they prepare that whole chart, that is known as conceptual framework. And from there, you will get your research problem, that is gap analysis. That is what sir must have discussed with you for 2 days. And from that gap analysis, we make our own hypothesis. So we derive our hypothesis not from our intuition or not from the people who are talking to us. It is through review of literature, and you find gaps, and from that gaps you create hypothesis. Okay. Now, what are variables? हमारी स्टडी में रिसर्च में वेरिएबल्स क्या होते हैं? I always share this to share with all my PhD students or those who come to our center, and I tell them that taking up any topic is like getting married to that topic. I made a mistake in my earlier career that I choose topic which was not of my specialization. In fact, research is like a web. Like, say for example, you are taking up PhD topic, and then you are spending rest of your life in doing a research with a multidisciplinary concept, but the main topic of your PhD will be that center. You keep on adding new variables, you keep on adding new topics, but your main study will be your specialization in which you have done your PhD. So always be very smart because you're going to spend rest. See what happened. I sometimes wrote paper of HRM, sometimes I wrote paper of marketing, sometimes I wrote paper of higher education, sometimes I wrote something else. What will happen? I have nothing to connect together. Whereas in Western culture, what they do is they spend their entire life on one particular topic. And what happens after spending 2-3 years on one topic, and if you write 10-12 papers, you will master that topic automatically. And then you don't need to work on review of literature, things are ready with you. But it is late in our culture that we realize this. I have done my PhD on infrastructure development in Mumbai. And then now I have done those mistakes. Now I'm following only infrastructure and higher education. That are my 2 interests of research. So now I have to stick to this. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to study other faculty, but I will study the relationship of that particular faculty or that particular subject area with my topic. So please choose your topic very smartly, wisely, Think of the long term. Think that you're going to spend your 25, 30 academic year with that particular topic, and you have to gain a name and fame in that particular topic. You have to give something very good theories. After writing 10, 15 good research papers, I'm talking about very good quality research papers in the same topic, you can create models. And that's how one does delete also. So this was something I wanted to share with all my young and participants, those who are pursuing PhD or MPhil. You all can choose your topic very smartly and wisely. Okay, now next question. Who are the hero heroines of our topic? What we actually do in our topics? The main is variables. हम पूरे रिसर्च में जिसको पढ़ते हैं वो है वेरिएबल्स. What are variables? Anything that vary with time or situation or any other factors is known as variable. जो भी चीजें चेंज होती, जो चेंज नहीं होती, उसको हम क्यों स्टडी करेंगे? Will we study something which has no change, which has no pattern, which has no reasons? It stays like astronomy. Or if you take an example of gravitational force, उस पे भी स्टडी होती, लेकिन लिमिटेड होती है और उनकी स्टडी अलग लेवल की होती. वो फैक्ट है. इससे ज्यादा वेरिएशंस वहां नहीं पॉसिबल है. So we study variables because they change and we want to know why that varies. So there are 4 types of variables in which we are, as in social science students, social studies students, independent variable, dependent, extraneous or interaction. One is in creating indirect relation and one is influencing the relation, that is mediating and moderating. So we will discuss in detail what are these variables. So before I go ahead, any queries until now? I just want to share one thing with you all. The web that I was talking about, just a second. Research web, एक छोटा सा मैंने attempt किया है समझने के लिए और समझाने के लिए, just to help people that how can we create that web of learning of our own research. Just a small example. Yeah, just a small example, nothing great deal, but just giving you an ideas. This is how a conceptual framework or hypothetical diagram is drawn after creating a various variable relationship. And then you find a gap between these two and this is your study. But after this, you create another web and that is your contribution to research industry. That is your contribution to your own faculty where you are specialized into. So that is what I wanted to just share with you all. And one more thing, for the young researchers, those who are just have started, I can share something with you all. Yeah, this is what I wanted to share with you all. You all can create such Excel sheet. Write all what you have the information about particular topic. What you look into review of literature, I'm sure sir must have mentioned, but I'm repeating. Kabhi, whenever I have to keep myself, I should not speak in Hindi. Okay, what we search in our research paper or in journals or in a thesis, objective of the study, methodology used, and findings. Most of the people don't like to read, they get confused when they read a lot of technical research papers and they feel like I cannot review this literature, it's very hectic. No, keep it simple. Don't get into too much of detailing. Just go through what are the objectives of that particular study that you are referring, which methodology that person has adapted, and what is the findings. And that will become your part of ROL. And when this table is ready with you, you can create your own ROL and it keeps on adding. Just imagine after your PhD writing 5-10 research papers, you have a huge bank of review of literature. And it goes on adding with your web. I think some questions. Let me check the chat box. Can you please share the PPT as it's very informative? Yeah, then I will do that. But any other question? You all have any question then? Can you give some examples? Yeah, Not only going to give you example, you are going to get a homework here now, right now. After my session, every participant should know what is dependent and independent and extraneous variables and everything. So we are starting with, just a second. Okay. So we are starting with variables. First thing, I want everybody to read this, and if possible, have something to write with you, some book or something, or some laptop. You can just write down something, some questions that I will ask you after explaining things to you, and we'll see if you are able to understand and answer them rightly. So the first thing is digital marketing and tourism, opportunities for Africa. So I've already underlined. We all understand variable in this are digital marketing and tourism. Now tell me, in these two, which you feel is like more of variable and other is constant? So I have to keep the chat box on. So the question is, what we are trying to study is, if I'm reviewing any literature or any paper and I read this sentence, digital marketing and tourism, opportunity for Africa. Yes, tourism is constant, and what we are going to study is digital marketing. Okay, next thing. Digital technology and marketing management capability, achieving growth in SMEs. So digital technology, marketing management capability, these are two variables that I can understand. And we are going to understand what is their impact on the growth of SMEs. Now the third, impact of radio advertisement on buying behavior of urban commuters. So I'm going to study, even I will discuss. If I forget, please ask me at the end. Impact or effect word bahut. Okay, English. Please be very careful while using the word effect and impact. Please, as a researcher, now you all should know which words to use when. We should be very choosy. We are academician and now we are more of researchers. So the words that you use are very important. So let us come back. Impact of radio advertisement on buying behavior. So advertisement and buying behavior both are variables. So now let us check in detail what is independent variable and what is dependent variable. Okay, very easy to remember. Many times when I started, I was so confused about what is this independent and dependent, why I'm not able to get it. So to explain my own self, we have our own self-study. I made it very clear. Independent variable are like parent, and dependent variable are like kid. I am dependent on my parent. When I was kid, I was dependent on my parent. Simple. So something that is a cause and effect. Cause is independent, effect is dependent. So if you keep these things clear, you will be able to answer all the questions. But we will solve this through example once. I will give you some exercise and we'll see if you are able to understand. So variable that is stable. So parents are stable, unaffected by other variable. You are trying to measure. So whatever variables you are trying to measure, among those variables, there are some variables which are stable and which are not affected by others, but they influence others. It refers to the condition of an experiment that is systematically manipulated by the investigator. Like when I am investigating something, I keep some variable as an independent, and I will see that independent variable is influencing other variable in which manner. How is it influencing? So it is presumed to be cause. So cause and effect, always remember, cause is independent, effect is dependent. Now let us see with some examples. Okay, then I'll explain dependent variable. It is like children, we are dependent on our parents. We are influenced. बचपन में हम किससे influence होते थे? हमारे parents से. So always remember your childhood and remember you are dependent on your parents and they used to influence you. You get influenced by them. It responds to the independent variable, cause and effect. We are the effect. It is presumed to be effect of an independent variable. So these are the basic explanation of independent. How to understand? Sentence आता है इतना technical होता है कि हमें confuse हो जाता है कि because understand, if you don't know which variable is independent, which is dependent, you will choose a wrong test. You will choose a wrong test and entire efforts of your research will go in vain. Because that you have to choose a right test under any softwares that you use. It may be SPSS or R or anywhere. You should be aware which are your variables are independent and which are your dependent variables. And accordingly, you have to apply your test. So these things are very clear until now that, okay, parents are influencing kids in our childhood. So we'll keep them as independent and childs are always dependent on their parents. So now the first question comes here. There is effective relationship between teaching methods and marks of students. See, what we are studying now, only variables. I'll teach you half lecture will be of variable and half session will be on hypothesis. Ek bar variables clear ho gaya, hypothesis is very easy. There is nothing to worry about. So, effective relationship between teaching methods and marks of students. So now please tell me who influences whom. So let us take both vice versa. Teaching method is if it is independent, can influence marks of students. Or we'll take it ulta. Marks of students are independent. They influence our teaching method. मतलब हमारे बच्चों के marks हमें influence कर सकते हैं teaching methods को? नहीं, गड़बड़ है ना? That is known as conceptual knowledge of your topic. Nobody will tell you. That is your concept will tell you that which is independent, because we all are teacher, we know this, that our good teaching methods will influence the marks, that will increase the marks of the student. If I'm using a wrong method, students will get less marks. So it means my teaching method is influencing the marks of students. So my teaching methods are my independent and marks of students are dependent. So I hope until now things are clear. Any question until here? Okay. Now let us check if you are getting the answers right. So I'm not going to answer this. I want everybody to read the sentence, right? What is the answer? I'll check in the chat box. Okay, some must have something to say, but marks are seen as a factor grading. See, hum pehle stage par hai na, we are at the first stage, no? We'll look things at one stage. Then we'll increase our own knowledge to second stage. Then we can look at a larger area, okay? So now you just keep yourself only to dependent and independent. It's a larger story behind the marks of students. Not only teaching method can influence, there are many more things that influences, but for our study and understanding. So let me check the answers. So the answer is increase in employment. Most of them are saying are increase in employment, a lot of living. Increase in employment is independent variable and sort of, I'm just reading the answer. Let us check the answer. So increase in employment is independent, which influences the way our lifestyle is in the entire country. If the employment increases, automatically the the income of the people increases. And because there is an increase in income, then their spending habit increases, and that's how they have a better standard of living. So it is dependent way. So I think most of you are clear until here. We'll go to the next. Can you all solve this? Employee satisfaction is influenced by employees' engagement policies in the company. Employee satisfaction is one variable. Employee engagement policies in the company is the another variable. So tell me which is dependent, which is independent. Policy IVN. Okay. Employee satisfaction is dependent variable. and employees engagement policies are independent variable. How far employees engagement policies can influence or have an impact, or I can have a good positive impact over employee satisfaction. If the policies are good, satisfaction level is high. So I guess now you all participants are clear with independent and dependent variable. You all can easily understand through the review of literature that, and you will choose your right IDV and DV for your own study. But why you have to choose this, understand. I'm telling you why. The reason is, when you conduct data analysis, when you collect data and when you conduct a data analysis through some statistical tool, in that statistical tool, you should know which are your independent variable, which are your dependent variable, because those tests can be carried out on the understanding of your data and the variables, nature of variables. Okay. Now let us go to the next. The third type of variable that we are going to study is mediator. What is mediation? So let us understand that. A mediator variable is a variable that causes mediation, or it causes some relationship between two variables. It's like an indirect. In the absence of mediating variable, there is no relationship between the two parties. In the absence of, say for an example, in our real life example, me and my brother. He is my brother because we have a same parents. अगर हमारे parents same नहीं है तो हम दोनों भाई बहन नहीं है. Simple. So that is a mediating variable. It explains a relationship between the dependent and independent. वो हमारे दोनों की relationship explain करते हैं हमारे parents. अगर हमारे parents को हम हमारे relation में नहीं, हम दोनों के parents same नहीं है तो हम दोनों भाई बहन नहीं है. So that is a role of mediator variable. Is a middle variable, जिसको बोलते हैं middleman बोलते हैं, between independent and dependent variable. Objective of the mediator variable is to explain the relationship between DV and IDV. Example, IV is not directly influencing DV. They may not have a direct relationship, but because there is a third variable which is causing the relationship to happen. Just to make things remember, I use some tricks. So when I was understanding mediator variable for the first time few years back, so then my mentor used to say this: लड़का लड़की अगर शादी, मतलब boy and girl going to go married and there is no pandit there, they will not get married. So pandit is the one who creates a relationship between them two, and that is a pandit, that is mediator variable. So let us check this. Predictor, independent, outcome is a criterion जिसको we say dependent. So always remember, again, there may be some researcher who must have come across this word predictor. Predictor are independent variable. Outcome or a criterion are dependent variable, right? Now let us check the concept that I have written here. Companies turnover have some impact on employees welfare schemes. If the company's turnover, revenue generation is much higher, they should be spending more on the employees welfare scheme, provided they have a management attitude. If management attitude is not that great for their labor or for the employees welfare, will they have a more expenditure over welfare scheme? Will they provide more schemes? No. So if we remove management attitude, there is no relationship between them. You will not see any positive relation or negative relation between the both. So companies turnover may have an impact over employees welfare schemes. If the company is earning more, they spend more on employees welfare, provided they have a management attitude. It is seen that as an income increases, people tend to spend on health screening regularly. Now, another example, little more elaborate. This I've taken from some research paper. That it is usually seen that if person income increases, they spend more on health screening regularly. So they are now more conscious about their health because they feel I have a sufficient income to take care of my health. It is also found that not all people who has higher income spends on health screening. It is not always necessary. People may earn very high, but they are not spending much on their health awareness. With increase in income, education plays major role. If increase in income and then there is an education who is influencing both them, then there is an awareness, there is an education for the health, that yes, I have money now. I should take care of myself. I should screen my health regularly. Hence, I'm spending. So now if I have to create this model, how will I create? So I want everybody to take a minute and just concentrate on how we have created mediating variable. Income has some impact on health screening. Yes, those income increases, you spend much more on health screening and now you are more aware about your health, provided that education is there. So that is how you create the mediating effect. Now, usually what researcher does is they first try to find out the effect directly from income to health screening. And then they create, there are various tests for it, which we cannot spend time now, which test, because test comes much later and after understanding few things. So you study the income and then its impact on health screening through education as a mediator. That how education is helping people to understand the importance of health screening once their income increases. So that is how, when the effect of the education is removed, the relation between salary and health screening disappears. And then you will find there was no much connection. But moment you added that education in between, you saw that yes, they had a relation. Once education mediating was present. अगर वो absent है तो इनके बीच में कोई relation नहीं है. Any question until here? Okay. So let us go a little ahead. Does anxiety affect test performance? And if so, does it depend on test taking experience? Now I want you all to think and write which are independent, which are dependent, which is mediating. Now I have taken very simple sentences which we all academicians understand. So conceptually, I don't need to explain. Anxiety affects test performance, and if so, it depends on test taking experience. So the chat box is open for the answers, and you all are welcome. Why should we consider such variables? I am not getting. Achha, why should we? That's the whole research. Archana, I think you have questioned very well. She's asking, हमें इतना सब क्यों करना है? यही तो research है. Otherwise, how will we establish? How will we know that who is hero, who is heroine, who is villain, who is our supporting actors? Okay, someone has answered anxiety is dependent. Then test performances, वो भी उसको भी independent बोल दिया. No, they are not same like literature. Somebody have asked, ma'am, is the method same for literature students? Literature have a different methodology and quite different. Okay, let us now see what are the answers. Anxiety is independent variable with a predictor. Test performance is our dependent variable because test perform depends on the anxiety. How excited you were, how stressed you were, and that will have an impact on your test performance. हमारे students जो बहुत ज़्यादा stress लेते हैं, anxiety में रहते हैं, उनका performance weak होता है. We all know that. So anxiety influences test performance. Hence, we say anxiety is independent, test performance is dependent, and test taking experience. How was test taken? Now, most of us are teacher here, like we all are professors, most of us. One thing that we must have experienced while we were taking supervision during examination, when we roam around, there are some students who will tell, ma'am, don't stand here now, I'm getting nervous. What is happening with that child? Even if we are working on some project and somebody is coming and working on you on head, that test taking experience itself will give you a lot of pressure and your anxiety level will increase. So hence that was a small understanding of the model. Just to explain you all, this is not the actual, I'm just explaining you all that how variables are looked into and how concepts has to be built. Okay, quickly. Will not spend much time. Quickly. What about the effective method? In which sense, Kanan sir? What effective method you are talking about? Meanwhile, please, all others participants answer this quickly. This I'm explaining you all. More you will solve this, you will understand and have a complete clarity. Okay. So most of you have got the answers, right? Staff picnic leads to cohesiveness among employees. If you take people to the staff or to the picnic, the staff to the picnic, there will be good bonding that they will create, which leads to active participation of employees. But what if you take people for the picnic and they are not getting along well, they are not talking, rather they fought that day? Will there be any active participation there? So how will you create this relationship? Staff picnic has an impact on active participation of employees, provided there is a cohesiveness among those people, whether they are creating that bonding or not. So let us check this. Staff picnic is an independent variable, active participation is dependent, and cohesiveness that one can create at the staff picnic itself is mediating. So if, for example, हम cohesiveness निकाल लेते हैं, वहां कोई cohesiveness build नहीं हुई, then there is no connection between staff picnic and active participation. That can be one of the research problems. So till here, I think mediating variable is clear with everyone, that with the presence of mediating variable, there is a relationship between IDV and DV. In the absence, there is no relationship. That is what you can remember simply. Now we shall move to the next topic. Okay. Moderating variable. What is moderator? It is a secondary independent. So always remember, moderator is also independent variable. They also influence the other variable. They don't get influenced by anyone, but they influence others. That the researcher selects because he or she think it may affect the relationship between primary independent variable and dependent variable. It influences the relationship. It tells you whether there is a good relationship, there is bad relationship, there is a strong relationship, positive, negative. Most of time it is either a quantitative variable or categorical variable. There are always two things under moderating variable. It's a variable that affects the strength of the relationship between predictor and criterion, IDV and DV. It specifies when the relationship will hold. It can be qualitative or it can be quantitative. Moderating variable are typically an interaction term in statistical model. Mediators are interventions. These are interactions. So moderator variable is a third party variable that modify the relationship between these two. The objective of the moderating variable is to measure the strength of the relationship between IDV and DV. They don't create relationship. They rather influence the relationship or tell us that how strong are the relationship between these two. In their absence, अगर moderating variable नहीं है, तो शायद relationship weak हो सकता है या तो strong हो सकता है. In either of the cases, it works in the two-tailed ways. So that is moderating variable. Now for an example, so if you can see the change in the diagram, पहले क्या था, दोनों तरफ था, independent से mediation से dependent, but here you have a direct relation, but moderating variable is influencing their relationship. Now let's take an example. Teaching method has an impact over improvement in students' performance, provided students' learning skills are good. So even if learning skills are weak, still there will be good performance to a certain extent. But if the learning skills are very sharp, then the performance will improve. Which doesn't mean कि अगर learning skill मतलब अगर उसकी absence ही है, अगर इसको हम study नहीं करेंगे तो relationship develop नहीं होगा, कुछ तो relationship develop होगा. Take an example of this. This is a perfect example. Training method has the impact over employees' efficiency. If you train people well, their performance in the work, in their efficiency will increase. But what can influence more? What can have a more impact with the trainer's knowledge? So trainer's knowledge becomes moderating variable. So if I study the moderating variable, if I study trainer's knowledge also, I can define that yes, training method has more influencing power or is highly influencing on employees' efficiency, but provided trainer's knowledge is good. If the trainer's knowledge is weak, there will be impact, but it will be not of that positive impact, or it will not be a great impact. So this is how we understand moderating variable. So I think until here things were clear. Any questions or doubts you all have? So we studied 4 variables: independent, dependent. Then we studied mediating variable and moderating variable. If you all have any questions, you all can put down in the chat box. How to differentiate between moderating and mediating variable? If you want to just make it simple, mediating variable, always remember, creates relationship. In their absence, there is no relationship. In moderating variable, there will be relationship, maybe weak, not as strong, not much influencing, but there will be relationship. So this is a one way of remembering. Moderating are just influencing. They are not creating any relationship between the two. Any other questions? I'm trying to find some questions here in the chat box. Okay, so there are no questions. I'm going ahead. Let us solve these examples. How to frame conceptual based on this. Yeah, that is what I'm discussing the next, sir. How to create, as I mentioned, no, you have to create some model of hypothesis model, and that becomes your conceptual framework. That is what I'm going to discuss the next. Okay. So let us check this. The mediating effect of service quality, okay, and the organizational commitment on the effect of management process alignment on the higher education performance in Makassar, Indonesia. This is one research paper. This is one review of literature. How do we find out, identify our variables out of this, and how do we create a model? This is a small example how you all researcher can start identifying your, जब भी हम हाइपोथेसिस सेट करते हैं तो उसके पहले का काम है ये चीजें अगर क्लियर हो गई तो हाइपोथेसिस becomes very easy. So I want you all to just read the first sentence. That was an objective of this. Title of the paper is there. Then there is an objective of the study, and then there are variables that I have mentioned down. So I want everybody to read this. Objective क्या था? The purpose of this paper to analyze relationship between management process alignment. Now we all see, I have taken the topic of higher education because we all are academician. We can relate it very easily. Management process alignment, service quality, organizational commitment, and higher educational performance. So we want to understand, and the topic is what? Mediating effect of service quality and organizational commitment. So these are the two mediators. Effect on what? Management process alignment, which is independent. On what? But higher education performance. So how do management process alignment influences the performance of higher education? But how we can create this management process can create a relation with service quality, organizational commitment, which will improve the performance. So now how should I write this in a diagram, or we said in a model? So this is how I have shown here. This is how you will create a relationship. So these are only 3 variables we're talking about. When you start doing review of literature, you will find multiple variables. Somebody have mentioned in the chat box that trainer's knowledge also depends on the trainee's willingness to understand or learning. So that becomes another variable. It's good. Then you third, fourth, and that's how you create the whole model. So after doing this review of literature, this is after through that Excel sheet I explained you all, you can do this. And then you will find some research paper have studied impact of higher education performance on students placement. So that becomes the next part. Then that becomes another part. This is how you create a web. Next example. Should I go to the next example? Okay. Moving to the next example. SQM, Service Quality Management in Higher Education Institution. Determination of service quality measurement. So now again I am trying to explain you how to create a model. Little complex model, but they are not complex. See, once things are known to you, they are not complex. Complex is only when we are not able to understand. Can you remember all your relatives' name and their relationship and what they have won in what marriage? Yes, correct. The research is also the same, or any topic which you feel is complex is not complex until unless you are not aware about it. So the purpose of this paper is to develop a new model, namely service quality measurement in higher education in India. So for the measurement of service quality in higher education institution. Findings were given in that way. If you can please read this finding, and then you will understand why did I created the other model. SQM mediated model argued that the placement is a better interactions of the quality of education in India. The model reveals that the quality of education is based on the best faculty, the excellent physical resources, and wide range of disciplines, which paved the diverse students' body and to improve the employability of the graduates coming out of the higher educational institutions in India. The above model proves that placement is the mediated factor for the various dimensions of quality education. Now, if I have to put everything into this, I have to first identify which are independent variable, which are dependent variable, and which is mediating variable. If you all want, you all can create that on your paper and see if that model comes as same as what I have done. You all can take 2 minutes and just prepare something roughly on your paper and see. Check which are the dependent, which are independent, and what is mediating. Which are independent variables in this? Yes. We're talking about quality in higher education. Very good, Jinsa, Joseph have given the right answer. That quality in higher education is our independent. And dependent with what? Time. Best faculty, excellent physical resources, and disciplines. And what is mediating variable in this? Which is the mediating variable? Perfect. Shivali has given a right answer. Placement. So if I have to, so I'm giving you some conceptual understanding of this paper because I've read the entire paper. They mean that if I have to say my education system is very good or my quality of education is very good, how will I determine that? Through placement. If placements are missing, that is actually happening with in our case, right? placements are not there, but we say our education system is very good because students are getting good marks. Getting good marks actually is not the outcome of our education system. Placement should be the one. If placement is missing, there is no relationship that can be established between a good factors that we have in our teaching education and service quality. So let us check this model. So if SQM, that is service quality management, is independent variable, but that service quality management is dependent on what? They also have another variable. Best faculty, excellent physical resources, wide range of discipline will lead to a good service quality management, and good service quality management will lead to the performance of higher education. But when can it be seen? Only when there is a placement. The placement nikal denge. Will the good service quality management have a higher performance on higher education? No. So if we want high performance of education that is dependent, which is dependent on service quality, provided placement is there. Placement is not there, then you cannot say that your service quality management is very good in India. So that was, I'm just giving an example. This is a model that you have to create after doing a review of literature. So if, just imagine if you refer 10-15 papers of such nature, beautiful model you can create, and then you identify which gaps are there, what is missing, what can be studied. Correct? Then we move to the, let me check the timing. I have to keep checking the time. What's the time? Okay, I have another 1 hour with me. Is there any questions until now? Yes, placement is also one of the outcome. Very true, sir. So even you can study that. You have to create one concept background and you have to study that. That becomes another model. And that's what researcher has to do. You keep reading, keep using your brains and ask questions. Discovery is the mother of invention. So we have to keep doing the discovery. You know, most of us in some, like, I'm so sorry if I'm making this offending statement. Don't get me wrong. At least for me, that was true few years back. We feel inventions and research can be done only in pure science. Yeah, kya research? So huge research world that we have in social science. Human is the most biggest variable of this world. We are so different. We are so unique. People are so different, and what we study in social sciences, people, their behavior in economics, in RM, or in HRM, or in marketing, in business management. If you see in social science, we study human behavior. At the end, what we study is human being. In finance also, we study financial behavior, people's behavior. So that's the basic thing. We should not think that it's only in pure science that we can do a good risk. People have got a good patents in the social science also. So we come to the third paper, higher education service. Higher education service quality, student satisfaction and loyalty. Validating again there is a SEQL scale and testing an improved structural model. So what was the purpose of the study? Is to validate the higher education service quality scale using a confirmatory approach and test an improved structural model that predicts. Now sometimes you know what happens, many students doesn't know what is confirmatory approach, structural model. Don't get afraid of it. There's a methodology, nothing more than that. Once you advance in your research knowledge, for you these all words are small, they are not great deal. Confirmatory approach means you are going to use confirmatory factor analysis. Structure model is what? You're going to use some regression model in your study. So don't worry, these are the statistical names and nothing great about it. But our focus should be on variable at this stage. So that predicts students' loyalty from image, perceived value, satisfaction, and service quality. And I hope now my participants can only concentrate on these words. That is, predict students' loyalty from whom? Image, perceived value, satisfaction, and service quality. So important results उन्हें क्या find out किए थे? Indicated that student satisfaction is influenced by technical service quality, image and perceived value, but not by functional service quality. The students are satisfied. They get influenced by what? Technical service quality that is given by the college and the image that they already had, the perception that they have, but not by the functional quality. Both dimensions of service quality, however, are significant predictor of image and perceived value. The study uses a comprehensive measures of service quality and demonstrates that it is worthwhile to consider functional service quality as higher order model. So you can create your own model and you can name that model the way you want with a proper statistical data analysis and interpretation. As both the technical and functional aspects plays an important role in shaping students' perception and behavior. So let us check how to create a model for this. Did I ever said in this that independent can be only one? Here there are so many independent, but the study, they started with this, that these are the 4 independent predictors that explain student satisfaction. They are explaining student satisfaction. There's an effect on student satisfaction. But after the study was completed, they found functional service quality was not able to explain student satisfaction better, or they were not able to have an influence over student satisfaction. So in research word, in technical term, we use explain. How well independent variable can explain dependent, how well they affect them. So this is how we are going to understand. So what you can do is in this research, for them, functional service quality was not so important, but now you can verify whether this is true for my universe, my research area. So that can be one of your study. Is it possible there is no mediating variable? Yeah, ho sakta hai. It depends on which level of your research you are in. And Sneha, I'll tell you, I share this with you, and I have not reached to that level that I create a model of my own. I'm in my process, I'm in a way of doing it. But once you start doing it now in your own area, say online behavior or marketing or HRM, anything that you take up, employee engagement programs or something, if you go in detail, you will find more numbers of mediating and moderating variables. Is it possible that you marry with a person and you both are only there in this house? Not possible. You get influence. There is chacha, mama, bua, tau. There are so many people around us. So there are people who create relation with us, and there are people who influences us. So at this stage, I'll say no. There is not that there cannot be a research without mediating and moderating. But in a later stage of your, more you advance over your research, you will find the importance of mediating and moderating. Is it important that thesis to state the solution as well? Which I can answer a little late. We'll concentrate here. Somebody is asking whether there is solution zaruri hota. Is it necessary to write solution and thesis? We'll answer this at the end. I think, okay, you all want to go for 4th paper, or should I go to hypothesis directly? Quickly we'll see this. The paper identifies a model, 6 structural dimensions containing 23 items. They have identified 23 variables. It proved that the direct positive effect of perceived service quality of students' perception for the service quality on satisfaction, loyalty, and motivation. Paper also supports the partial and complete. Okay, under mediation, there are partial, mediation, and complete. What is partial and complete? As name suggests, there are certain variables which creates a relationship, but partial, not strong. And there are types of mediator which have a strong relationship. The paper also supports the partial and complete mediation role of students' satisfaction between perceived service quality of students, their loyalty and motivation towards service being provided by the university. So let me show you the model directly. Perceived service quality of students. What students have perceived has impact on students' loyalty. Now somebody said that, ma'am, is there some cross relationship? There was one chat question. Is there a cross? Yes, there can be. So now if you can see, student satisfaction has a direct impact on students' motivation. Whereas from perceived quality, student loyalty, student satisfaction plays a role as a mediator. Whereas in some cases, it becomes independent to the student's motivation. So some complex models, little higher level. When we started, we just started with dependent and independent and dependent. Then slowly we started with mediating, then moderating. Here I'm showing that how one variable can be independent and can be dependent at the same time for the 2 different people. Like my father is a father for me, but he's a son for their parents. So that's how we make a difference between the variables. Not necessary that it has to be one only. Mediating variables can be many. And not necessary, you always have to find mediating variable. If you are not finding it, it's okay. It depends on the level of study that you are doing. Okay, I hope. See, I will not say that you should understand everything what I am explaining you right now. Or ये model आपको पूरा समझ में आ गया. But I think you got an idea. You got the idea. Yeah, there are variables that we need to understand. So there are 4 types of variables that you have to understand. One is independent, other is dependent. One variable which is creating a relationship between the both, means it is a mediating. One who is influencing, and that is moderating. So when you study research paper, you should know the difference between the 4 and place them in the right bracket. That's it. So should I start hypothesis after this? Until now, any question related to variables, please ask me. Any questions you all have until now for variables? External use, I just explained, is a mediating variable, madam. Okay, somebody has asked me, explain mediating and moderating variable once again. We don't have whiteboards here. Any other queries you all have? Okay, I'll ask you 4 questions. You can answer in the chat box so that makes more clear to everyone. People can also refer the chat box. The question comes, a variable which is outcome of the other variable. Variable which is outcome of the other variable. Shana is given a right answer. Very good, very good. Another question, a variable that creates a relationship between IDV and DV. Perfect, perfect. Okay, a variable which is a predictor. Baap hai wo sabka, we can say. Influences others. Perfect. And the variables that influences the relationship between them. They don't create, but they influences. Moderator. Yes. So most of you have got the answers right. So my objective of sharing things with you is clear. I'm very happy about it. So we are going to start with the next topic, that is hypothesis. So before we start, I want to know what you all know about hypothesis. What is hypothesis? And where and why we should create hypothesis? What is a big deal of creating an hypothesis? And one big question that everybody asks, even I had asked a few years back, is it necessary to have hypothesis in your research? Not necessary. Why you want to test or prove something? Hypothesis is some relationship that we expect to exist. Not necessary. We should have hypothesis. Okay. Now I'll tell you. Is it necessary to wear helmet while riding two-wheeler? Is it necessary to wear helmet while riding a two-wheeler? Yes, it is obvious. Is it necessary to wear helmet while riding four-wheeler? No. So you should know which kind of research requires a hypothesis and which kind of research doesn't require a hypothesis. If you are writing a review-based paper, if you are writing a conceptual paper, you need not require hypothesis. But if you are talking about a study which has already been done a lot, people have talked a lot about it, and you cannot tell, yes, today I'm a new one and I'm going to start a research from scratch. No, people have already done so much of work. You start from there, and then that requires hypothesis. But if I'm going to write something about lockdown, if I'm going to write something about COVID or something which is very new, which is like an exploratory study, which has been done for the first time, if somebody is writing on autonomy of higher education, maybe in Western world it is written a much, but not in India. It is a recent scenario from last 2 years or 3 years we are experiencing. So such topic which we don't have much reviews and we are starting fresh, we are writing a conceptual paper, you may not have hypothesis. But when you're writing something where a lot of research has been done and you are going to take up a primary data, you are going to work on those data and you are going to prove some theory, before that you have to refer someone's theory. And for that you require hypothesis. I hope this query is solved now. That when it is required, in which research, type of research it is required. Assumptions are required before you start something. You have to say that I have something in my mind. It's not in your mind, obviously it is in the review of literature, that this review talks a lot about this variables. Let me check whether this is true for my study, for my population, for my universe or not. So then we take up hypothesis. So now let us see what is hypothesis. Is defined as an unproved theory, proposition, idea, tentative statement, supposition, etc., tentatively accepted to explain certain facts or to provide a basis for further investigation, argument, etc. So when I was explaining such thing in one of the workshop, one student asked me, ma'am, if this hypothesis is tentative statement, it is just a proposition, why should I refer review of literature? I can just create something of my mind. That is not acceptable, because we're in a scientific research. We are not in an absurd research. We are not writing essay. I'm not writing something of my mind. I am in a research protocol. I will first study what people have told about this particular area. What are they talking about? Which variables they have referred, what relationship they have created. I will take that into consideration, then create a hypothesis that until now this is what people are saying. Let me check whether it is true for my study or not. And that's how research goes. And that's how we say that it's a scientific or systematic research. So hypothesis cannot be your intuition, your mind, or your see. Even I had wrote a paper where I worked on working hypothesis. I didn't had a review of literature to back up my study, but I needed hypothesis. Now, how to create that? I was working on the perception of the teachers for autonomy in higher education in commerce colleges in Mumbai. I wanted to know what is the perception of the teachers, and I wanted to establish relationship between perception of the teachers on the effective implementation of autonomy in higher education, because it plays a major role. If my perception is negative for autonomy, the effectiveness will never come up. So for that I needed hypothesis, for which I created a question, a short question, maybe 4 to 5, and I shoot up to all my professors in the teachers group and all, and then I got the idea and I created one hypothesis from there. So again, it was not my idea. It was after talking to experts from that field. So hypothesis can also be created through observation, scientific observation, through review of literature, to what obvious, and talking to the experts. If you talk to people working in the front lines for the COVID, you don't have much data. And you talk to them and you really talk to around 100 people together and you write something. And that is evident that yes, these 100 people are talking about this particular matter, and then you create a hypothesis is acceptable. But something of your mind will not be acceptable. So now let us see. Setting of hypothesis, gap analysis through ROL, identify the need for study, identify and select the variable to study. So these are small steps, simple steps. You first go for gap analysis, ROL, through ROL, then you see if some variables are not yet studied, some relationship are yet to be explored. Go through it, take up that particular gaps, categorize between IDV and DV or mediating and moderating, and then study the relationship and differences. Okay. Remember one thing. In research, what we study, in a technical research, we study relationship, differences, influences, impact and effect. But you should be very careful of using the word impact and effect. When you want to study impact of something, you need an experimental test. For relationship and differences, we have statistical test. Correlation, regression, ANOVA and all those helps you to, ANOVA helps you to study the differences, and correlation helps you to study the relationship. Structural modeling helps you to create a relationship in the model. Correct. So use your words properly in the scientific term as a researcher. Okay, now let us understand hypothesis. What is the story of hypothesis? And what we exactly understand through null and alternate. After this session, I expect none of my participants should fall into a wrong myth of understanding hypothesis. So now there is a boy and a girl. They have been seen together in bus stop. Let's a story. What is the relationship between this boy and a girl? So directly asking a question like this, what is the relationship between them? Do you think as a smart researcher, you should ask, is there any relationship between them? Just because they are found together daily on the bus stop, does it create some relationship between them? So these are the two questions I'm posing to you. So there is no relationship between boy and girl. There can be one answer that there is no relationship. For that we use word, there is no significant relationship between boy and girl. Now why we use word significant, that also I will explain you. So my first question is, if there are two people standing at the bus stop, boy and a girl, especially in our hypothetical society, we tend to see this genderism hota hi hai. So the first question was, what is the relationship? But then as a good researcher, I said, let me ask, is there any relationship? Now you all tell me, what are the probability of relationship between them? What kind of relation they must be having? They both are seen on the bus stop daily. Friends, okay. Okay, what can be the good relation between the two, boy and a girl? They can be same age, siblings, cousins, colleagues, friends, busmate. Then they can be boyfriend, girlfriend. They can be spouse. They can be neighbors. Okay, they must be colleagues. Just hi, hello types. No relationship. They can be strangers. Very good, Paul. They are classmates. Okay. Now let us check hypothetically how it can be studied. There are two probabilities. First, never ask such question. Just a first question. Then what is the relationship between nahi? The question will be, is there any relationship? And if it is yes, then we go ahead. If it is no, study closes. Somebody who are in the advanced level of research, they always say that null hypothesis, which are accepted, which are very poor study, and null hypothesis which are rejected are good study. The answer lies here. Because when null hypothesis is accepted, there is no scope of further study. The further study can be done only when there is the null hypothesis has to be rejected. Correct? So जो इनका advanced research stage है उनके लिए, otherwise you all be with me. After this session, everything will be clear. So they are stranger, there is no relationship. I never said that is a bad relationship. I said no relationship. They are strangers, The relationship between them could be brother, sister, friend, lover, and etc. Whatever you all have mentioned. Nature of relationship can be positive and negative. They can be even enemies. They can be anyone. They can be rivals. They can be the proprietor for two competing companies. They can be anything. So when you study the data, so what you did to know whether they were having any relationship, you went to their background and you checked. They are not staying in the same building. They are not going to the same college. They have no relationship. You asked people around and you identified, okay, it is coincidentally that they are getting into the same bus. That's it. So now what your data says, that there is no relationship between boy and the girl. Another way will be, you find out the data and data said, okay, yeah, they are staying in the same building. Oh, they are the colleagues. You got the data and data told you that, yeah, they are colleagues. Hence you said, okay, they are colleagues, which means that the null hypothesis, null means nothing. Nothing is existing. Null doesn't mean negative. Most of the students feel that null is negative. No, null means koi cheez exist nahi karti hai. There is no relationship between them. So is it a bad thing that they don't have any relationship? Not at all. So null always says that there is no relationship between two variables. There are no relationship between, they do not have any connection. So when I have to frame any null hypothesis, I will write down, there is no significant relationship between boy and girl. Now the question is, and when I have to, if I have to frame an alternate hypothesis, then I will say there is significant relationship between boy and girl. Now, before I go ahead, there are two things that you all should know. Why we always use null hypothesis to start with. Can any one student tell me, or any one participant can tell me, that why do we start with null? Why research paper prefers null? We usually don't start with alternate hypothesis. To avoid bias, Aparna, very good. It relies on facts. Aparna is going a very apt answer. To prove validity, we take null is because it is always safe to start with nothing rather than saying something. Technical, okay? Conceptually also. Better to always start with saying nothing. It is always safe. And then if it is something, what is that something can be studied later on. Okay, I'll explain you again. Okay, tell me, hypothesis, one thing you all have understood. Did you understand what is null hypothesis? We study relationship between two variables. Now, boy and a girl are variable. How do we create hypothesis? In hypothesis, we study relationship. We study differences. There are two things that we study. Relationship and differences. As of now, you understand this much. When I say there is a relationship between boy and girl, I want to check who is influencing whom and what is the influence of independent variable on dependent and all that. But before that, I should know, is there any relationship between these two variables? Let me check that. To check that, I frame a hypothesis. Now I have an option of two, null or alternate. So I can directly write, there is a significant relationship between boy and girl. But who told you? Did review of literature told you that? There are enough evidence with you to say that there is a relationship between the both? No. Even if you have, most of the researchers start with null. We say we'll start with nothing is there. We start with nothing is there. And if my null hypothesis is rejected, the data says null hypothesis ne kya bola tha, there is no relationship is rejected, which means there is a relationship. So the two negatives nikal jata hai to positive create hota. When there is two negative which is removed, you create positive. So again, I am repeating, we start with null is because of two reasons. The first reason I told you, it is always safe to start with nothing rather than creating some stupid relationship. And the second is our test, our statistical test, any test you take up, except few of them, which you will study in the advanced research, correlation, regression, and many other t-test and any other such two sample t-test, paired comparative test, all these tests always check null. The results they derive, they give the results of null, whether they are accepting or null or they are rejecting the null. They never study alternate. For them, the test that our statisticians have created, they always assume that there is no relationship. Okay, I think there is somebody who's raising hand there. Parametric tests, we will not talk about parametric tests at this stage. I'm talking only about, because so we make null hypothesis data are normal distributed. Why? Okay, this can be done little later. I want to first explain people about just null and alternate hypothesis. See, we all are in a different level of our understanding. Should null hypothesis be always negative? There is no negative. Who said that? They are saying there is no relationship. Is it negative? Just by saying there is no, you and me have no relationship. Until now, we never knew each other. Today, I am a resource person, you are participant, we had a relationship. Earlier, we never had. So, was it negative? So, just by using word no doesn't mean it's negative. Please, now tell me one thing. Okay, chalo, forget about everything. Tell me one thing. If your COVID result report, COVID-19 report says you are negative, why they use word negative? Our pure science test, diagnostic center test, always assumes presence of a disease. They conduct the test and then they will say positive or negative. HIV positive मतलब HIV है, HIV negative मतलब वो नहीं है, malaria positive मतलब malaria है. So that is positive negative for them. For them, in pure science, they start assuming that you have a disease. They check the data. They don't find anything. They write negative. But in social science, we are little different from that. We assume there is nothing, null. नहीं है कुछ संबंध इनके बीच में, कोई differences नहीं है, कोई relationship नहीं है, कोई impact नहीं है. Then that null is checked. And if null is rejected, when I say null hypothesis is rejected, which means what? Now, I want you all to tell me there is no significant relationship between boy and girl. यहाँ तक तो समझ में आया, no significant relationship between boy and girl is a null hypothesis, is rejected. I rejected this hypothesis means what? What do you mean by that when I say it is rejected? Please answer, Kanan sir, please answer this. Alternate का मत मुझे बताओ. I'm asking you, when I said that there was no relationship found, there is no relationship between boy and girl. This test I conducted and my data said that null hypothesis was rejected. This hypothesis is rejected, that there is no relationship. Means what? Yes, Kanwalpreet, yes, there is relationship. Exactly. So, hence, now there is a scope of study कि relationship है तो कैसा है, कितना influencing है, क्या उसमें mediating है, moderating है. Now there is a scope for further study and hence we study alternate hypothesis. I hope now null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis is clear with everyone. There is somebody who is asking a very sensible question. That why do we use word significant? बहुत simple है इसका. I have broke my head in this. Why people use, and people have told me enough explanation. I never got that idea. But when my mentor explained me in simple words, I got it. He said that In pure science, say for example, the test is done. Malaria is negative. So I go to the next lab. What will be the result? Malaria is negative. Then I go to the another diagnostic center. If I don't have malaria, I won't have it. Clear? But in social science, our data are collected from human beings, human behavior. Correct? In pure science, if we connect income with something, outcome of the employee satisfaction and standard of living and anything, we are variating, we are heterogeneous. We cannot behave homogeneous. My workshop today and my outcome today can be different in the next session. I can be more or less effective in the next session myself. So what is happening? We do not have 100% accuracy in our data. And hence we cannot claim complete, there is no. So we always say significantly. मतलब 99% ऐसा 95% बोलते हैं हम उसको, 0.05 is a value that we consider, but don't get into that values as of now. You just understand why we use word significant, because we are in social science. We do not have 100%. तुमने कोई data लिया, say for example you studied 1000 data and you are studying about teaching methods and student satisfaction. Out of that 1000 you collect the data, you got the relationship. Can it be true for every population? Anytime you take up 1000, you get the same results? No. You may have a different results. And hence we use word significant. We cannot use absolute word in social science. That has to be used in the pure science. Social science ऐसा pure science ऐसा बोल सकते हैं, significantly नहीं लग रहा है, लेकिन हो भी सकता है. Even in fact, even they also write sometime in diagnostic that with this test it is seen, which requires further medical diagnosis. Correct? Correlate with the other medical. Also, they also mention this. But 99% in the pure science, it is 100% science. They will write direct sentences. They will not write word significant. Now I hope things are clear why we use word significant. So we'll go to the next. Types of hypothesis in social science, null and alternate. I think things are clear now. Alternate means there is a relationship and we further study what relationship. Null hypothesis is very clear that there is nothing, existing nothing. Okay, now let us understand this here. We study relationship. When do we study relationship? When there are two variables. Can we study a relationship with one variable? Can we study a relationship with one variable? खुद के क्या relation है वैसा? What relation I have with my own self? No, you cannot have this kind of study. We always study a word. Relationship comes technically only when there are two variables. Differences can be studied. If there is one variable, differences can be studied among the categories. That I will explain you in detail in the next slide. And then you use word effect and impact. Now, under effect and impact, again, there are variables and categories. But for effect and impact, you should use experimental method. What is the impact of my teaching over the participants in today's session? Let me check this. So there are two ways. If I use word relationship, resource person teaching ability has some relationship or has significant relationship with the participants' understanding or the performance of the or the satisfaction level of the participants. So then I can use word relationship because I'm just trying to understand. So what will I do? I'll collect the data from the participants and I will check whether they are satisfied and then we'll put up. But if I want to study the impact of my teaching over your knowledge, what should I do? Again, I'm repeating the question. I want to check the impact of my teaching over my participants' understanding. What can be done? Can I collect data from you all, feedback from you all? What can be done? Questions, test, quiz, very good assessment. Okay. So what I can do is, I take a test. After the workshop is over, I take a test If most of you get the right answer, it means I had a good impact? No. I should rather take first test with the same question paper, then conduct a workshop, and then take another test and compare the results of both the tests. If there is a significant difference in the marks, then my teaching was effective. One way. Another way is I can divide the class or the participants in two parts. One participants or one group cannot be taught. They will not be participating in this workshop or this session today, and other will be participating. I will put up the same test papers to both the participants. One is control group, and other is a group which I am experimenting on. And then I will collect the data. And if I see that the one who have attended my session had a good performance, then I have a good impact. So you have to choose this word very carefully. When you use word effect and impact, it means you are before and after or between the two groups. You are doing some experimental study. Whereas in relationship, you are collecting the data, primary data through questionnaire, and you are giving a statistical treatment. Clear? What's the time? I have to keep checking the time. So I have only 20 minutes and I'll complete the hypothesis wala part, and then I'll take up the questions at the end. But ma'am, in the case, won't the previous knowledge also be important? Yes, that's what I said. Na, ki first you take up the first test, they got some marks, and then take a session and then do the test. So then if there's a significant difference between the marks, then you can say that impact, there was an impact. So now types of hypothesis, there are three types of hypothesis. In statistical term, there may be various. हमने आगे null and alternate किया था, but in a statistical understanding, how will you study? Which test you should use? Parametric, non-parametric, under-parametric, which kind of test you will use? So there are various tests. To choose which test to use, you should know these two very important things. Again, I am repeating, to choose which test you should use for your hypothesis testing for your primary data, you should know these two things. Which type of hypothesis you are using or you are studying, and type of data. These are the two things that you should know. If you are aware about these two things, then you can choose an appropriate test for your study. So there are three kind of hypotheses: univariate, bivariate, multivariate. They are very simple as name suggests. Think critical about it. Univariate, where there is one. Uni means one. Where you are studying only one variable. When you are studying only one variable, univariate. When you are studying more than, or maybe you are studying two variables, bivariate. When you are studying more than two, then it is multivariate. Simple. So for univariate, we use word differences, trends. Bivariate, relationship between something, two variables. Multivariate, also we use various words like relationship or influencing variables. So univariate, bivariate, and multivariate. Now let us check this. Okay, what is the difference between, again, I'm going to use word categories. After this, I'm going to use this word categories. So you should be very clear. Difference between variables and categories. Gender, age, income, occupation, education, your number of years, your what income you are generating throughout the year. My income from last 10 years, categories. Years are categories. So they are not variables. My income is variable throughout that 10 years is categories. So gender, age, such kind of things are known as categories. Variables are one which changes. Marks. Does your gender changes every day? Does your age changes, but that particular period of time? Income group changes, but that particular period of time it remains the same. So occupation, education, you have to hold categories as constant and work on variable. So please have a clear understanding. Gender, age, income, all these, teacher, education, just occupation, BCom, MCom, MPhil, and all that. They are not variables. They are your categories. Now we'll understand this. And it is very easy for you to understand once you know what is the difference between variables and categories. Problem of the study. Marks of girls and boys. I have a students in the class and I want to know, okay, is there any difference between the marks of girls and boys? ऐसा कोई difference होता है दोनों के बीच में? So let me check. See, if you can take last 10 years data and check the toppers, and you have a curiosity to know, is it true that female students are likely to get good marks, or they are more on the merit list than the male students? That can be one of the study. So are there two variables, male student and female student? Question mark. So let us answer, let us check this. Type of hypothesis. So students marks are variable. Marks of girls and boys में marks क्या है? Students के marks are variable. Gender is category, but they are not variable. Type of hypothesis is univariate because we only have one variable. And when you have one variable, you cannot use word relationship. You have to use word differences, because that one variable differs between two categories. One variable differs between two categories, and hence we use word differences. So there is no significant difference between marks of students and gender. There is no significant difference between the marks of girls and marks of boys. You can write either of the way. So null hypothesis कैसे create करते हैं univariate में? Null hypothesis in univariate always use word differences. So objective of my study, acha, how do you derive objective? Through hypothesis, to study the difference in marks of students on the basis of their gender. Clear with everyone? I assume it is clear because I cannot see anyone's facial expression. I can just judge you all through your chat responses. Okay, so univariate has one variable. It varies across the categories. It can be gender, age, income, occupation, anything. ये तुम्हें कौन बताएगा कि ये category है और ये variable है? Your conceptual understanding. Now that I cannot help you. When you are in that field, you have taken up a topic. और जब आप वो topic को study करोगे, you automatically know what is variable for you, what is category. So don't worry so much. Everything cannot be understood in the one day session, right? So you will get to know very clearly. Now let us go to the next example of univariate hypothesis. To study the trends in tourism industry, univariate. Trends करेंगे. Trend is a variable, but throughout the year, variable is a throughout the years. To study the choice of mode of travel on the basis of demographic characteristics of travel. One of my faculty, one of my colleague had this objective, and she framed 11 or 21 objects out of this. It was a huge study, but only univariate study. Under univariate study, you cannot have a relationship. So you have a limited scope of test, percentage method, and some of those tests, pulse walkings test, and some tests are there, but they are very limited. So you're not studying any relationship. You're just studying choice of mode of travel among different age group, among different kind of people of income group, etc. The last is to study the role of RBI in developing the security. So banks in India. But role of RBI in developing security of banks in India. What is the variable in this? You're going to just study the role of RBI. Security of banks in India is category. That's it. Example of bivariate. When you have two variables. Understanding whether teaching method influences performance of students in examination. So what are variables? Teaching method and score of students. And now we all very well know which is independent and which is dependent. And type of hypothesis is bivariate. How you write a wording, what are the wordings for hypothesis? There is no significant relationship between teaching methodology adapted by teacher and score or performance of the students during examination. So that is your null hypothesis. And then you write the objective to analyze the relationship between teaching methods and score performance of the students. This is how you frame your objective of the study. So is bivariate also very clear? Where you are establishing two relations, you are checking the relationship of two variables. It is bivariate. So I can just read some of those objectives of the study I've given you all. Analyze the relationship between employee satisfaction and working hours in an organization. Can you all quickly in a minute give me null hypothesis for first objective? How should you write down null hypothesis for first objective? Bivariate. First hypothesis, then objectives. First hypothesis and then objectives. Because through hypothesis, you will try to study the objectives of the study. How can we study difference in objective? Akansha, we are studying differences in the categories. Understand, we are studying differences in the categories. We are not studying differences in the variables. Variables में difference नहीं, हम variables में relationship study करते हैं. There is no relationship between शिवाली थोड़ा गड़बड़ कर दिया. There is no relationship लिखना है. There is no significant relationship between employee satisfaction and working hours in organization. Perfect. So I think most of you have given the correct answer. So we go to the next one, multivariate. अभी तुम्हें याद आएगी कहानी. There can be more independent and one dependent. There can be one dependent and more dependent variables. There can be mediating variable. There can be moderating variable also. And when you study all this complex structure, it becomes multivariate. So, just a tip for all the new researchers. Our journey as a good researcher should be to start from univariate and reach to multivariate and create a good research design for our future generation. That's what we are supposed to do. And even I'm trying to do it. I'm not that great researcher. I'm on my way to understand research world. So the problem of the study, let us see multivariate analysis kya hai. Developing relationship between teaching method, learning style of the students, and classroom environment with student satisfaction and their academic scores. I have done half of the study and I've written few papers on this topic, but then now I want to do this model. So some example I'm giving you. How many variables? Teaching methods, learning styles, classroom environment, student satisfaction, and their academic scores. Types of hypothesis. Now you have got it is more than 2 variables. It is definitely multivariate. So how will you write down this? To identify the relationship between teaching methods, learning styles of the students, and the classroom environment. Now you will wonder, ma'am, आपने null hypothesis इसमें mention नहीं किया. Because you have to first establish that null hypothesis. Now, here theoretically, I did not study much, but what is influencing the which independent variable influencing which dependent, which are mediating, moderating, and then you have to frame a sentence that way in the null hypothesis. Okay, I can try for you all. Null hypothesis कैसे लिखेंगे इसका? You all also write down, even I'm writing it down. Let's see how we can frame null hypothesis for this. So we can create 2 null hypotheses. One is for checking whether there is any significant relation between teaching methods, learning styles, and the classroom environment and student satisfaction, and on the academic score separately. If our theory or our review of literature suggests that student satisfaction is one of the moderating variable, then we can frame it in a different way, that there is no significant moderating effect of student satisfaction over a relation between the both. So you can write it that way. So one example I'm just showing you. For moderating अगर variable होता तो, if at all student satisfaction was moderating variable. Now, who will tell me? ROL. We don't have to apply your brains. ROL will tell you whether it is moderating, and then you can check. You can also check both the things. You check whether it is mediating or moderating. Those kind of tests are also available. That your research case just to know whether this variable is moderating or is mediating. You can do ROL. You take up a study, you apply the test, and test will tell you whether they are mediating effect or it has a moderating effect. So just giving you a small example. How to write null hypothesis. And if it was mediating, then you can write a mediating effect. That's it. Okay, how many objectives the study should be there? Ideally, this should not be discussed with the learned participants like you all. You are a very intelligent group of people. But if it is thesis, it should be a larger enough big topic for you to, you should try and do a research on the topic which is not too old, not too new, a topic which has some social relevance, something which has to do with the current events, and where you are doing exploratory study also, and you are doing conceptual study also, and you are doing hypothetical study also. So thesis cannot be just on a 2 variables. There have to be a good model. So it should have 4 to 5 objectives. Dissertation is little lower kind of research than the thesis. Hence we say 3 to 4. Research paper should have 1 or 2, ideally 1 or 2 major objectives. Research papers are meant to be concentrating on the few of those important aspects of the variables. So this is no written rules, are there some general rules that are acceptable. Okay, clear until here? A small test for you all. You all can just write down first in your chat box 1 ka answer kya hai, 2 ka answer kya hai. There is one hypothesis which is written in the wrong way. So you have to identify even that and tell me which hypothesis is not written in the right way. So we'll discuss first one. First he discuss karenge. There is no significant difference between the sales of 2019 and 20. So which kind of hypothesis is this? Univariate, bivariate, multivariate? Null to hai. Null but univariate. Null and univariate. Perfect, perfect. Second sentence read karte hai. Bivariate, second का bivariate बोल रहे हो? Second का bivariate है. There is no significant relationship between shopping behavior and gender. Tell me, is there anything wrong here? Anyone can identify what is wrong here? And is it anything wrong there? Shopping behavior is variable. Gender is also variable. Gender is category. And when there is a category, can we use word relationship? It's univariate. What differences should have been used? Perfect. Very good. Perfect. Third one. Third का answer बोलो. Okay. You are studying the online payment system and the rewards given by the online payment portals, bivariate. Fourth, effect of stress, mediating effect of stress on relationship between 2 variables. 2 variables study करें. In low income, alcohol addiction. अगर बंदे की low income है क्या alcohol addiction होती है? इसका हम रिलेशनशिप ढूंढ रहे हैं. But we are also studying the mediating effect of stress. Low income में से ज्यादा stress होने से alcohol addiction हो रहा है. The people with a low income may not take up so much of stress. They live their life, they are happy with their low income. So they may not have alcohol addiction. So how is it this? So which there are two variables that we are studying, relationship between two, but we are also studying mediating. So is it multivariate or bivariate? We are studying multivariate because we are studying mediating variable. Mediating effect हम study कर रहे, 3 variables study कर रहे, hence we say it is multivariate. Fourth one, fifth one, students' IQ significantly influences relationship between teaching methods and students' performance. Students' IQ, one variable, teaching method, students' performance. But tell me, when I use, which kind of variable is this? Students' IQ, is it mediating or moderating? Nidhi, as Nidhi, Kalpana, Rai, Menon, why you are writing mediating? It's not mediating. I never said they are establishing any relationship. I said influencing. When I use word influencing, when ROL says it is this, students' IQ significantly influences. But if I said that students' IQ creates a strong relationship between the two, then it should be mediating. Otherwise, it is moderating. Influencing means moderating. Okay, so this was the answers that I created. Second wala jo tha wo aise likhte hum. There is no significant difference between shopping behavior of males and females. You cannot write word relationship because it was univariate. Okay. Lizzie ma'am, how can we just chat box pe hi questions ko address karna hai?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the question has to be addressed on the chat box, right? Or we have a separate session? No. There are too many participants for them to ask. So many questions are there. How many hypotheses should be there for thesis?
Actually,
Ideally,
all the questions you have answered.
Can we see the previous slide? Okay, you can see the previous slide. Usually you should have five to six. There are people who keep 11 objectives, but I don't know how do they write 11. See, hypothesis can be multiple, huh? If I said demographic profile, demographic can be many. One of my faculty have taken up a topic, demographic profile and the choice for tourism, tour destination. So demographic profile comes under age, gender, income, occupation, so many things. So hypothesis can be multiple, but objective of the study can be limited to 4 to 5, but whatever, at the end, remember, in thesis, whatever your guide says is a final statement. You should believe your guide. But you should not take up 10, 12 objective of the study. It cannot be. I hope I have tried to share something, some knowledge that I had with the participants there, and participants are very active, very interactive, and it was wonderful sharing some knowledge with you all. Oh, so many compliments. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think we have come at the end of the session, and you have explained wonderfully. Even few of my doubts have been cleared. Even I'm pursuing PhD, ma'am. So it was a wonderful, wonderful session. We understood how to actually formulate hypothesis. Thank you so much, ma'am. And you have answered all the queries so patiently. So since we are at the end of the session, I would like to invite Assistant Professor Disha Bhatta, member of IQAC, to extend a formal vote of thanks.
Thanks a lot, Prachi ma'am. A very good evening to one and all present here. On behalf of Bansanga's SMCT College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies, Powai, I would like to thank our management for always showing their support and always helping us with all the resources. I would like to extend my gratitude to the resource person of today's session, Dr. Khyati Vora, for giving her valuable time and giving her insights on the session for formulation of hypothesis. Ma'am, I think you have rightly emphasized on one of the proverb which says like, if you teach someone, they may forget, but if you involve someone, they will remember throughout their life. So thanks a lot, ma'am, for the same. I would like to extend my gratitude to our principal, Dr. Sridhara Shetty, who has always believed on no matter what, learning should never stop. Thank you, sir, for always encouraging and supporting us. I would like to thank our Vice Principal and IQAC Coordinator, Dr. Liji Santosh, Vice Principal, Professor Sandesha Shetty, for always guiding and supporting us. I would like to thank the organizing committee who has worked tirelessly for this event to happen. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the active participants for joining us and getting involved with full enthusiasm. So participants, many more sessions like this in the next week also. Okay, so keep involving like this with full participation and full enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you.
Khyati madam, I'm principal speaking. Really,
Yes,
you
sir.
are
Yes,
quite
sir.
honest and sincere to research. Because of that, that kind of expression is possible. And in a very, very lucid style, you have dealt with the complexity of research. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prachi ma'am. You are superb. It is so simple and lucid style. You explained it. It was really nice.
It's always a pleasure, ma'am. Pleasure to listen to you, ma'am.
Yes, super. So to the participants here now, Monday, 3 o'clock, ma'am will be dealing a session on art of developing a questionnaire, which is so important. Yes. So please join before time and let's enjoy her session again on Monday.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. See you on Monday.
Thank you, ma'am. Participants, attendance link is there in the chat box. Please fill the attendance before leaving the meeting.
Ma'am, Monday 4 o'clock, no? 3 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
Yes, sir. It's 4
I
o'clock.
said 3 or what? It's 4 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock.
4 to 6.
It is nice.
Should I turn off the YouTube live of